Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar. I'm Paulo Costa, EdTech Specialist and Sales VP at Critical Links, and I will be your host today. This webinar will be divided into two parts, a 35 minutes presentation followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. Audience microphones will be muted, but if you have any question, please write them into the Q&A chat and we will answer that in the end. Everyone that attended this will receive an email with a link to download several materials that will be mentioned in this presentation. So, to assist us today, I'm pleased to welcome two distinguished speakers and experts in various aspects of AI. First, please join me in welcoming Mário Franco, founder and chairperson at Millennium EDU Sustainable Education. Franco has been highly dedicated in developing sustainable finance models for education and ICT, and he participates in several different task forces related to technology and finance, such as the UNESCO, ITU, UN Global Compact. Besides, Franco has extensive experience in developing policies and projects for local computer production and assembly, ensuring that the technology infrastructure supports sustainable education initiatives. Next, I'm honored to introduce Charles Foley. Foley is a 40-year veteran of the IT industry, who has also served as the chairman of the board of directors for Critical Links since the company was incorporated. His business and technology background has seen him run cybersecurity, video surveillance, EdTech, and high-speed interconnected companies, giving him a good perspective of the challenges that organizations face and how they can most effectively use technology to solve those issues. Most recently, he has been addressing companies, government agencies, and industry analysts on the topics of how to construct a successful approach to effective use of Gen AI. He's also a 6-time coach of the U.S. National Taekwondo team, representing the U.S. in the International Taekwondo Federation World Championship. So, to kick off this webinar, I want to contextualize a few things. First of all, you need to understand that artificial intelligence is around of us for decades already, but the increase in computer performance and the emergence of new techniques took AI to another level. Some concepts that you should be aware of are machine learning, which is the technique where you provide a huge amount of data and power processing to a system to create an AI model that performs a specific task, such as classifying images or understanding human language. Today, we already have several models trained to do different tasks. Generative AI, which is a technique that uses existing knowledge from the AI models to create new views and generate new synthetic knowledge. Good examples of that are ChatGPT or text-to-image system, where you enter a text and they provide a synthetic image to you. Another important topic from artificial intelligence is computer vision, which is the technique, and in this one, the objective is to create machines and models that see and identify objects in video streams. A good and successful examples of that is Tesla autonomous cars. They developed a system that was able to train a model that can understand all the signs, the streets, the rules to drive a car without the human interaction. Predictive AI. This one aims to create systems that uses historical data to provide possible future outcomes. Good usages of that are to do weather prediction or fraud prevention. Credit cards already use this for many years already. You may not understand everything, but one thing you need to know and be prepared for. Artificial intelligence will have a huge impact in all aspects of our lives, like internet had. And to narrow this to the potential of generative AI to education, imagine for a moment that you are a teacher or a student and you have an AI assistant that understands human language and has the knowledge of millions of websites and books, all the Wikipedia content, all research papers and articles published, thousands of product reviews, all of that just a click away, depending only on you asking the right questions. Although this is already happening in some extent, it's not perfect yet. There are still challenges and limitations. Not all answers are correct yet, and in some cases, the right answer depends on other aspects. What are the country that you are in? What are the source of information? What are the bias of the model that you are using? So, to shed some light on this landscape, Mario Franco will talk about AI in education, policies, frameworks, and recommendation. He will tell us about AI challenges, what you should be aware and prepared for. Then he will present AI pedagogy, how to use it. And finally, Charles Foley will talk about how to use AI in challenging environments and bring the vision of industry leaders on how to bring AI everywhere. So let me call our first speaker, Mario Franco.
First of all, thank you, Paul, for your great introduction. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure to share these ideas with you and with Charles and contribute to the wider discussion on AI in and for education. My presentation will be focused, as you said, in several aspects, but the first thing I want to say is related to the importance of using AI in education. As you said, AI will impact in all different sectors, and I think the best way for anyone, especially young people, to have the first contact with AI is in the education, because education can give a context in different contexts for the use of technology, and in particular for the use of AI, which is a special technology. In this context, I will go to speak about three aspects related to the AI in education today and share some information. Of course, this will not close all the topics, is only one part, some aspects, but it's a beginning of the conversation. I think this is very relevant. Then the first is learning with AI, the use of AI in the classrooms. The second is learning about AI, which is a different topic. And the third is preparing for AI. And in these three topics, I will go deep in three other aspects connected with these three topics. The first one is how to create guidance for using AI in education. This is a very important aspect because the creating guidance, we have some reference tools. I go to to present some reference documents, but the most important in my point of view is use these reference documents as the basis to create our own guidance at classroom level, at school level, at department, or even at the Ministry of Education. The creation of guidance can be an important tool to learn about AI and to learn with AI. Then each group, each school, each teacher, each Ministry of Education need to know about what is going on, the documents, the most relevant ones, the most comprehensive ones. But the most important is how to use these to do your own guidance, to adapt the questions to your own reality. The second, I will talk a little bit about the challenges like privacy, security, and ethics, and also give some references. And last but not the least, I will speak about what I call AI fluency. It will be focused on AI pedagogy. Then, let's go to the first point, AI in education and the guidance we can have. There are many things for using AI in education: personalized learning, automating administrative tasks. This is very important because the tasks today take a lot of time from teachers, even from the system. Then automating the tasks can be a good support for the teachers and all the system. But also learning support, as you mentioned, data-driven insights, interactive learning. There are a number, and lifelong learning, a very important aspect to go beyond the classroom, beyond the time in school. Then many things are involved of the use of AI in education. What I want to refer now is some of the main documents, the most comprehensive documents, which can be used to create guidance, to develop guidance for using AI in education, to implement AI policies in education systems at all levels. We go to show some of the documents produced and published by some important organizations. The first one, UNESCO, an organization which have a long list of documents and work and seminars on this topic, and has published a number of documents which can be referred and used for that purpose. The first one is the Beijing Consensus on AI and education. And this document is like the first one, is the basis, the principles, how UNESCO promotes the use of AI in education. It gives planning AI and education policies, how to deal with that. I only mentioned some of the aspects. AI as a lifelong learning creator for opportunities for lifelong learning, another important aspect. And the most important for this presentation related to the transparent and auditable use of education data and algorithms. Then this is like the basis. I will go a little bit fast because we have not much time, but I want to present a number of documents, but maybe in the debate or in the follow-up of this webinar, we can, and you can download the documents. All of them are free and go deeper in these topics. The other document published by UNESCO, very important, is AI and education guidance for policymakers. Today, there is a big discussion from the policymakers, what to do, how to do. There are good resources to start, although, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, is important, then we don't use it as a ready-made document, but to use it as a basis for creating our own guidance for our reality, our school, wherever, in which country you are, in which school you are, which teacher you are. It's important to do your own guidance with your students, with your peers, with all the system which contextualize your work. Then, in that aspect, AI to empower teaching and teachers. This is one of the first guidance for policymaking. Which kind of tools, which kind of policies can empower teachers to be the real source of context for the students to use AI? The second aspect, the second document I want to mention here is related to the key 12 AI curricula. Then one of the questions, the challenges, maybe one of the big challenges is to create a curriculum which serve the best use of AI and how to use the curricula as a tool to go deeper and learn about AI and have a critical vision of the use of AI. In this context, the document presents proposals and recommendations for curriculum development, integration, content, and implementation, and also learning outcomes. That's another important aspect for this purpose. Then I want also to mention some documents, one of them from the European Union. The European Union document is related in particular to ethical guidelines on the use of artificial intelligence and data in teaching and learning for educators. They were focused on this. This is in line with the European Union ethical guidance for AI and other documents they produce, but this one was published recently and is specific developed for teaching and learning, and it is with an approach for educators. Then explain how AI is used in the schools, present ethical consideration and requirements. Then all this document can serve as the basis to complement the UNESCO ones. Another one just coming out 1 week ago, it is from the United States, is a more practical document from the Office of Educational Technology, empowering education leaders, a toolkit for safe, ethical, and equitable AI integration in education. Then this is covers AI fundamentals, but also identify key tools, also emphasizes the collaboration and continuous learning about AI and alignment with institutional goals. That's what I refer as the importance to use these documents as the basis, but to develop your own tools, your own guidance. Another document I want to mention is from the OECD document. This document is more related to the skills, the future skills in AI. This trying to analyze the impact of AI on workspace and the relation with these changements in the workspace, because we cannot separate the education system from the workspace, from the skills required. And the OECD was focused mainly on the skills and how AI will go to evolve in the workplace. And in this case, this is also a very important resource. I want to mention also two other guides, one from Chicago Public Schools. And in this guide, maybe this will be very helpful for the people, because this is already not from the international organizations, but it's one guidance, one guidebook created by a group of schools. And this can give more practical suggestions for any school or any teachers. The other one is Alberta School Board. They also create a policy guidance for artificial intelligence in education with how to build AI literacy. Then, as you can see here, there are a number of resources. Then my point is, if we want to create a guidance and the guidelines and the policy and programs for education, it's important to have one vision, what is going on in the world. Of course, this is only one small part, very relevant, but a small part, and some examples. I could put here hundreds of documents, but I select the ones which are more discussed and known, and to share with you to that purpose of supporting people who are interested in creating their own guidance, which should be the driver of this discussion. Then the second point of my presentation is related to the challenge, the big challenges. Of course, one of the big challenges, and that I left for Charles, which is more related to the kind of devices, the kind of solutions, affordable solutions, which can meet the needs of everyone, especially that ones who are not so well connected to the internet. We know many schools don't have good connectivity or even connectivity. And in that case, that is one point to check, is what kind of connectivity we have in our context and what kind of solutions we can offer. I will let that more for Charles. Then the second point, which is a little bit related, but I will not focus very much today, is the question of energy and cooling the system, because as we know, AI requires energy, either for running the algorithms, either for cooling the systems, and local solutions can be a solution. And this is also related to the questions of connectivity, energy, and so on. And what kind of devices we should use and what kind of solutions, less cloud, more local. This depends in the lots of contexts. Then I want to focus here in three aspects. The first one is privacy and security. The question I put here because they are related to the question of connectivity in another way, and also a question of energy. Because one important aspect for education is to have security and privacy. In what concerns, for one side, the data of students, the data of the education systems, then in my point of view, this should be one of the criteria to choose the best solution, the best solutions available to guarantee you are not sharing all your data or the education or the students or the teachers' data in the cloud in a way that anyone can have access to that. And this is a question of privacy, the question of security, but also a question of ethics. Because this question will be maybe, we know in the beginning of use ICT in education, this was not a very important point, and it becomes one of the most important, privacy and security of students too, especially the younger ones. But in AI, these problems are even bigger and have different, more aspects, more ways to be analyzed. Then to have this guarantee, data and algorithm sovereignty and ethics will be one of the drivers. I want to mention here in this challenge aspect to the question of the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence published by UNESCO. This document is very important because this document was the first one, is maybe the basis for all the other documents around the world, because this link the ethics in AI with human rights and the Declaration of Human Rights. Then this document is a good resource how to set the values and the principles. And I want to highlight here that the question of safety and security is included, the question of explainability and transparency. But there is one point here, 2 points here very important in my point of view. One is awareness and literacy. Nobody can implement these systems. Nobody can use them correctly if they have no education, AI literacy. If they don't know what is AI, how it functions, then it should be an education project to understand. Otherwise, we will be used by the system, but we don't have a critical position of the system. And the last point included in this document is the multi-stakeholder and adaptive governance and collaboration. This is what I was referring in the first point, is the importance of using these documents as the resource, follow some of the guidelines, but to work together in our context with our peers, in our school, in our Ministry of Education, with our students, in order to have our own guidance and a critical vision, not to distribute one document maybe nobody reads or someone reads, but not discussed enough to be appropriate by the people. That said, I will go to the last point of my presentation, considering the time frame. AI pedagogy. That's a very important point related to the awareness and literacy. Then I call it AI fluency. And in this point, I want to refer 5 aspects. The first one is what I call promptology. The second one, educational LLMs, large language models, educational. The other one is related to the research in education and generative AI. And the 2 last is to present 2 documents from UNESCO, one just coming out in September, AI competency for teachers and AI competency for students. The first one is promptology. Then I know my time is running. Then I go to try to fill the time gave to me. But here is one thing I consider important. As Paulo mentioned, it is necessary to ask the right questions if we are using, for example, generative AI. But in general, we call it prompt engineering, how to design the questions. I go there a little bit further. But what I want to refer here, and I include this concept, the prompt articulation, is not only how we be assertive to make the right question. It's important to connect the prompt engineering with the prompt articulation. For example, I give you here one example of one image in Renaissance style with different colors. Then I use a color palette. I use clarity and detail to ask the system what kind of image I want. I contextualize the style, Renaissance style, and I give some guidelines for the composition guidance. What it means, this is a work of different teachers. Then I have to learn about painting, about styles, about context. Then I have to know a wide culture to make the right question. It's not only to jump to the computer and make a good question very clear if I don't know what kind of style I want. It means then the prompt engineer is interlinked with prompt articulation. This means we have to have a very strong education system in all the sectors, in all the areas, in all the different subjects, in order to create good prompts. Then prompt can be a friend of the teacher and the teacher, because then the students can see the results. We all remember when we start to use, for example, ICT in math, then one of the good things is you can make a math expression and you get an image which represent your math exercise. In this case, it's like the same, but for every subject. Then, in my point of view, it's very important to include this in the different contexts. Of course, prompt engineering is also it's necessary to have direct prompts to evaluate. Here I show a little bit the prompt engineering guide from ChatGPT, OpenAI, as an example. Everyone have, but I believe this is an important learning aspect for our education today. But prompt engineering should be connected with prompt articulation to the students to be able to have the context and to have the culture enough to make the right questions. The other point I want to highlight is the fact then the LLMs should evolve, and also the prompting should evolve in order to align prompting and LLMs to answer aligned with education. Here I give 2 examples. One is the first example, general LLM answer. When you make a question and the ChatGPT, for example, answer you a direct answer. The second example, which demonstrates pedagogical alignment, is when you make an answer and the system make you some of the questions until give you the answer. Then in this example, you can see how it's different to use general answer from a general LLM and an LLM aligned with the pedagogical purpose. Of course, you can solve this by creating a prompting with different steps, but this is the work I'm sure the companies like Critical Links are working on to provide you solutions like that. Finally, I want to mention two documents here. The first one is guidance for generative AI, and sorry, three documents. The first one is related to the research, very important. And in this case, the research should go into the direction of use generative AI and align its integration with the curricula and human purposes. But I don't want to go out, and I have only 1 minute for mention two documents. One is AI competence framework for teachers. As you can see here, I will share my presentation after. It's 5 aspects: human-centered mindset, ethics in AI, AI foundations and application, AI pedagogy and teacher development in 3 progression levels. And then you have 15 competencies. That this document, as the other one, the next one, was published in September. And this was a document which can help you a lot because they are very practical. In the competencies of students, you have 4 aspects, 3 different progression levels: understand, apply, and create. And of course, highlighting the questions related to the alignment with pedagogy, the ethical aspects, and the relation with curricula. All of this is what I have to present in the 25 minutes. I just arrived there. But I know it was very fast, but I think I tried to present the most relevant things so far I was able to study. Now, of course, to implement all of these, to discuss all of these, you need a very challenging environment. But for that, I really want to pass my presentation to Charles, which who work a lot in that, and he knows better than me some of the main points related to that challenge.
Mario, obrigado, gracias, merci beaucoup, danke. You did a great job, and I really appreciate everything that you went over. So, as Mario talked about, there's so much information and so many reference points that he had, and we're going to make those available to everyone on the webinar by virtue of signing up for the webinar. So you will receive information as to how to get all of those rich documents that Mario has shared and referenced as to how to have responsible use of AI and Gen AI in education. So what we're going to talk about now is how can I make this available to anywhere, any school, any classroom, any student, no matter where in the world I am and in which region. And we think that's incredibly important because AI and Gen AI is going to be one of the most significant technological developments and evolutions of our lifetime. It is going to rank right up there with the introduction, the evolution of airplane technology. Can you imagine being a country that didn't have airplane technology, or cell phones that didn't have cell phones, or nuclear technology? If we don't find a way to make this type of capability available anywhere to any school and any student, we will increase the digital divide. We will not close the digital divide. So we need to find ways that we can make AI and Gen AI available to any student anywhere in the world, in any school or any classroom. And that's really what a number of us in the industry are dedicated to doing. And we're going to go over some of that with you today. So as Mario talked about, And Paulo also talked about that. AI is a huge field. There's so many different aspects of it, from machine learning to computer vision to predictive AI to generative AI or Gen AI. We're going to focus on some of the topics and concepts and how to implement them that are, by most industry watchers and analysts and experts, considered the most pertinent to the education sector and pedagogy. That being Gen AI or generative AI, creating new information from existing knowledge and finding a way to keep that engaged. Safety, doing AI in a safe, responsible, and appropriate manner for the targeted audience, which in this case is, for the most part, students. How to use technologies like chatbots, and a topic that you'll hear called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. That is how large industries, governments, banking, finance, manufacturing, tech companies, that is how they are addressing the challenge of how do I make AI relevant to the question that specifically is being asked? How do I have what's called guardrails so that AI doesn't introduce inappropriate topics or answers that are not relevant to my students, or make up its own answers, which are called hallucinations in that world. We're defining success in a Gen AI deployment in the educational concept as the ability to have AI available in any classroom, in any region, at any time. You might be in South Africa, in a well-stocked school, or you might be in New York or Los Angeles, but you might be in a rural school that doesn't have regular power and connectivity in the rainforests of South America. Or you might be in Malaysia in a school that has very limited infrastructure, or you might be in Costa Rica or the Dominican Republic in a school that is being rebuilt after a storm. But you still need to have the ability to tap into the power of AI and Gen AI to enhance the learning process. And we'll talk about that. And you have to be able to do it. And this should be a primary concern for everyone on this call. How do I do AI and Gen AI in a way that's safe and appropriate? There's a reason that we don't take 9-year-old children and put them in university to try and teach them brain surgery. There needs to be a progression and a process. That's pedagogy. How do we do that in a way that's safe and appropriate and introduce the concepts and the knowledge that is needed at that time in a structured way, and don't go outside of those boundaries? And how do we do this to enhance both the learning speed and effectiveness? In regions of the world, if you don't embrace AI and Gen AI, other regions will begin to learn faster. They will begin to learn more. They will begin to develop enhanced capabilities that your region may not have. So we need to make sure everybody can learn faster on a global basis and in an effective way that retention is increased. And let's not forget, we need to do it in a way that's cost effective. We need to make sure that we can put AI and Gen AI into the classroom at the fingertips of a teacher and a student from a major city to the smallest of rural schools in a way that is cost effective and that they can actually do it in a reasonable time frame. And this is scaring a lot of people because there's so many myths about AI that is slowing the adoption and causing fear. There is myths such as that AI has to run in the cloud. I have to tap into the big, giant, massive server farms of Amazon and Azure and Google. Or that if I were to run AI and Gen AI in my own organization, it needs huge data centers full of high performance, very expensive servers. There is the myth that if I want to use AI, I always need to be connected to the brain, to the AI brain somewhere up in the cloud, and that the amount of data needed to use Gen AI is so big, I could never afford that in my region, in my country, certainly not in my school or my classroom. And there's the myth that, well, even if we did use AI, we're tapping into a global knowledge base, and we want to be able to structure our curriculum and decide what first graders and second graders and third year students and fourth year students have, and the Ministry of Education wouldn't have any control if we open the gates to AI. Those are myths. Some of them are grounded in some reality. If you were going to build your own large language model and train it, that takes a lot of processing power. It takes a massive amount of data. But there's a way for you to take advantage of it in a way that's safe, secure, local, and cost-effective, where these myths don't have to apply to you. So what if we could make all these fears and concerns and myths go away and allow you to take advantage of AI and Gen AI anywhere in the world in any classroom? Industry leaders are working together to do that. The first thing that the educational technology industry is doing is we're forming groups to bring the power of AI and Gen AI everywhere, right out to the edge, to any classroom or any student. Intel, for example, has formed the Intel AI Acceleration Program, where Intel is sponsoring and bringing together different companies with different parts of the chain, different links in the technology chain, to make AI-based education available more broadly, more readily, and more cost effectively. We're working together to integrate a number of technologies, certainly Intel with the edge AI processor technology, so you don't need massive servers full of expensive GPUs, but how can I get AI technology of the right size and cost and performance profile for education to be put on something small enough that it could drop into the classroom? The open source community is building, we've heard of large language models, and Paulo mentioned that, small language models. It doesn't have to be trained on 40 billion parameters, only the certain amount of data that's necessary to teach children of a certain level or university students of a certain level. And how do I do that and put it in a platform, in a system that can be put into a school or even a classroom, and make it network independent so it can run on its own even if I don't have internet connection all the time? And most importantly, how can I take this technology, harness the power of AI and Gen AI, and do it in a way that's safe and appropriate? That if it's an 8-year-old student or a 12-year-old student or an 18-year-old student or a 24-year-old student, that I'm keeping only the appropriate information to them relevant to their stage of the process and the topics and subjects that I want to educate them on. That is called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. It's how you limit what knowledge base the brain or the language model is using during the pedagogical process. Also referred to as, that's another type of guardrails. How do I make sure that I keep the AI use safe and effective? So we're designing a reference architecture that any school system, any country, any region could say, how can I make Gen AI available to my students in my region cost effectively? We're shooting for a price of less than 1 penny per student per day. That is a fairly small investment for one of the major technological and evolutionary shifts that are taking place in our lifetime. Now, what are the pieces of this reference architecture, and who has to do it? It actually starts with you. It starts with teachers and administrators and Ministry of Education and Department of Education officials, because you have to define a responsible use strategy for your AI. Those are some of the resources Mario talked about. What are we going to use AI for? What do we want to teach? What are the use cases for teachers, for students, for administrators? Then you develop a technology strategy that can bring that to life. And probably, if you're a school system or a Ministry of Education or a country in the world, you want to have a centralized control point that you can take your policies and implement it anywhere automatically, either over the internet or via offline methods, even if it is USB key updates. This is all possible. That's normally the responsibility of the IT and technology teams, but the pedagogical teams have to come to the party as well, because we need to develop content and curriculum that will take advantage of that infrastructure. And most importantly, for everybody on this call, we need to define the pedagogical use cases. What do I want a student to be able to do? What do I want a teacher to be able to do? Is it build a lesson plan to teach a new subject? Is it to allow the teacher to become competent on a new subject because we're throwing a lot at them? Is it creating quizzes and tests? Is it grading quizzes and tests? All of those use cases need to be defined. That is the responsibility normally of the Department of Education or the Secretary of Education or the Ministry of Education, supported by their teachers and the pedagogical community. Now, then there's the technology side of the equation as well. In order to bring that strategy to life, you need an AI-capable processor that will run a small language model or a local large language model in a small, cost-effective, power and heat-effective footprint. People like Intel are doing that. Then you need to marry that brain with local storage and content capability, a unit that you can put in the school that has all the information that the language model will need for the topics and the subjects and the students that you're teaching. And you probably want to Wi-Fi enable it so that students can access that local point with a tablet or a PC or even a cell phone. And then you need to blend into that. And that's, by the way, that's the system level component. That is something you would see sitting on a teacher's desk or in the school's data center. Then you need to marry that with a specific language model. And there are many. You'll hear words and names like Claude, BERT, Anthropic, ChatGPT, OpenAI. There needs to be a small language model that becomes the brain for that system to do the teaching. But we need to control that brain. So you need a prompt engineered chatbot. That is the front end. That's the language front end to the brain. That's what Mario talked about when he was talking about promptology. And then you need those guardrails I spoke about. You need to restrict it to certain topics, to certain languages, to certain subjects, to certain age levels and relevancy parameters. That's the AI portion of the system. If you put all that together, you have local schools communicating with the Ministry or Department of Education either regularly or on an ad hoc basis to stay in sync, to stay current, to use the right information, to use the same guardrails. But you take the power of AI and Gen AI and you put it out to every single student. This is something that is now becoming available. Today, in one of the questions that I saw asked was when will we be able to do this? We have AI-ready microcloud platforms hitting the market today. A small unit that goes in a school or a classroom and allows for the ability to AI to be delivered to students and teachers in a safe and responsible model. Part of that is because they now have these small language models or these local large language models that are becoming available that will run on these smaller processors. These CPUs are in process right now from companies like Intel. I think you're going to see a lot here in the next couple of months about what becomes available. So these edge AI capable CPUs are important to making this technology architecture work. But we also need to do education specific engineered prompting tool sets. How do I keep that brain with that information clearly directed only to the teaching processes and the audience level and the subjects that I want to do? And that is the RAG structure, or retrieval augmented generation, that I spoke about before. It's a very important part of the process because that allows for ministries of education, departments of education, and school systems to develop a responsible Gen AI enabled curriculum, a way that they can apply that to all the schools in their country or their region or their departments and have a repeatable use process so that students anywhere in the world can be trained and educated using this incredible new evolution in a way that's safe and secure. This is the project that industry leaders are working on. Remember this slide from before when I talked about the myths that slow adoption in education? What if these myths can go away? What if these become innovations that speed the adoption of AI in your schools and your regions? What about if we say, you know what, Gen AI can run in your school. It can use desktop CPU technologies. It can run locally in a school or a classroom without internet connectivity in a way that is safe and secure and responsible, using only the content that is local because it was provided by the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education, or whoever is responsible for the pedagogy. That is safe, efficient, appropriate, and cost-effective Gen AI at the level of the classroom and the student. This is the age that we're starting in right now. And we really feel that everywhere in the world needs to step up and start to think about and implement this, which leads to the question, what can you do? What can you do in your school or your school system? Number one, it's engage the discussion about Gen AI right now. Don't wait for it to come to you because all other parts of the world are embracing it right now. Define your use cases. By use case, I mean, I'm a student. What do I want to be able to do? I want to be able to learn about a new topic. I want to know the top 5 things that are relevant to the subject that I'm getting ready for. I want a summary of the last 2 weeks of curriculum my teacher gave me. What is the summary of the key points? Or what are the use cases for your teachers? What do you want a teacher to be able to do? I want her to be able to prepare a 4-week course with tests and videos and documents on a new topic, the French, the art renaissance, or something of that nature. How about administrators? What do they want to be able to do? They want to be able to look at statistics, predict grading levels, predict outcomes and results from new investments. And then once you've defined your use cases, drive the conversation about making it safe, secure, and responsible AI use, especially at the student level. I can't stress that enough. And begin investigating the technology advances that can bring that to life. Know what the parts and components are, which is where you start talking with your technical teams, because you need, no matter where in the world you are, you need to work with your technical teams to outline a reference architecture that embodies the use cases that you have been presented with and supports your goals and your objectives in your AI-enabled educational process. And you can use all those resources that Mario spoke about that we will make available to you. That is where we are today and where we're going. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paulo, because I'm thinking maybe you've got some questions that you would like us to address on all the information that you've heard.
Thank you, Charles. I'm very happy to having listened. You and Mario enlighten us about several aspects of AI that we need to be aware of. Right now, we do have many questions, but we are short on time. Let's see how many we are able to answer. The first since you were talking, is to you, Charles. Kamal is asking, in order to use artificial intelligence offline, do I need to replace all the computers and tablets in my school system for new ones?
No, you do not. If you do this the right way, you should be able to use all of your existing student devices to tap into AI and Gen AI. Think of it as a chain. So the student devices, or the teacher devices even, are at the end of the chain. The AI capabilities are a little further up. You will hear a lot of talk about AI PCs. It's a wonderful new technology and a wonderful tool that has been introduced. Essentially, that takes the Copilot type technology and allows it to make your PC simpler and easier to use. That's a different layer of the equation. It's a different link in the chain. That doesn't have anything to do with the pedagogical aspect of what courses, what information, what's appropriate, how do I teach it. The AI PCs are dealing with your local PC. It's really intended to make it easier and more effective and a better business, or in this case, learning tool. The pedagogical aspects is more up at the level of the microcloud and the cloud and the educational system that we spoke about. And so the reference architectures that we went over here, they should be able to support PCs, Chromebooks, tablets, even Wi-Fi enabled cell phones that might have been existing in your schools for the last few years.
Thank you. I do have another one, and this one I will direct it to Mario. Mario, what are the main benefits of using Gen AI in education comparing to other technologies that we have seen already?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for the question. I think to answer this question, I prefer to say there is an evolution in the world where AI is used in all sectors. Then it will change the workplace. It will change the way how we live. Then it is important to use AI in education in order to educate for a world where AI will be everywhere. I think the question, the most important question is exactly, the school should be the place of knowledge. The school should be the place where the people, the young people, learn about the world, because the context of the school give them not only the capacity, the technical capacity, but also the context, the cultural context, the ethical context, the values context. Then if the school is not engaging in this process, then the contact with AI will be less able to anyone or any society to have a critical approach of the use of AI. That's the most important benefit. Of course, there are benefits. For example, if we can use AI either to automate some administrative tasks or to have a kind of solutions who can keep the student engaged in different activities, either in the classroom or homework, or even to clarify some questions, because the teacher cannot be available 24 hours a day. That's also important. But I think the most important, if the question is, what is the most important benefit to use AI in education, is to have people with a capacity to live balanced lives, healthy lives, with a society where AI is everywhere. And even if you don't want the banks, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Health will use AI to manage their data, then and their algorithms will be there. Then it's better to understand the system and live with the system in a critical position, in a clear position, with awareness, than to be touched by this technology without understanding what is going on.
Thank you for your input. I do have another one, and this one is anonymous, but I do think that it's very important considering we have people from different countries. And this I will, since it's a technical one, I will shoot for you, Charles. What are some current solutions being explored to address cultural bias in AI use?
So that is a great one. AI and Gen AI is so wonderful and so new and so powerful. But if you've watched the news and seen the developments over the last year, you have seen that there have been problems. There have been problems at the corporate and the government level about rolling out AI. Big companies like Google themselves have ended up slightly embarrassed. And it has to do with cultural bias. And we spoke about that when I spoke about the concept of guardrails. So how do you avoid cultural bias from coming into play in your educational and your pedagogical processes? Because that's terrible. That means you could be educating your students the wrong way or educating them in a harmful manner. The key technologies that are evolving for that are around of what I spoke with you about before when I talked about relevance, augmented generation. The best way to think about that, we've thought about a large language model. Paulo, you spoke about that. That is the brain, and today's large language models are trained on literally billions of parameters. They're huge. They know a lot of things. If you ask that model a question, they will give you an answer based upon all of that data, which might not be appropriate. There may be data that they were trained on which you consider culturally biased or even offensive, depending on where in the world you are. So how do you take the ability for that language model to think, but apply it only to information that fits your cultural and social guidelines? That is the retrieval augmented generation. That means that in one school that just gets a large language model and gives access to ChatGPT, their students could be asking questions and getting a wide array of answers and maybe even harmful answers. Another school may say, I want to use the learning capability of ChatGPT, but I want to restrict it to only this information on these topics that we are teaching them. So if they ask questions that are outside of that, the student will be told, I'm sorry, but that's not within the context of what we need to be talking about here. That's how to address those. And that is using the right knowledge bases, ensuring what's called the provenance or the lineage of the information. Where did you get that information that you're letting the language model look at? And do you have the rights to it? Are you creating a legal issue? And is it valid? If you know you have the right information, you create that knowledge base and you direct the large language model only to that knowledge base. That is the RAG or retrieval augmented generation process. And that is what will make, in my opinion, the difference in safe, responsible, and appropriate use of AI.
Thank you. I wish we had more time. We we do have more questions, but due to the time limit, I will say that we will answer all the questions, but unfortunately, our time is over. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar insightful and valuable. And I would like to extend, of course, a special thank you to our distinguished speakers. First, thank you, Mario, for providing good source of recommendations on the usage of AI in education. We truly appreciate your contribution and the time, of course, that you have dedicated to prepare and to be here in this session. And thank you, Charles, for bringing your experience on how to enable AI everywhere. I think that this is very important and your contribution have been invaluable. If anyone has further questions or would like additional information, please feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to continue this conversation and explore more about how AI can transform education. Thank you again, everyone. Have a wonderful day and stay connected.
Thank you very much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Obrigado.
Obrigado, Charles.
Gracias.
Paulo.
Adiós.
Adiós.